Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Future Farm Finance Series second instalment, the Big Agricultural Energy Tech Debate webinar. I'm Adam White, the Head of Agriculture for Barclays Business. I'm responsible for a team of dedicated agricultural specialists across the UK who support businesses through a range of projects such as diversification, sustainability, and growth. I'm also a mentor to a number of agri-tech businesses, as well as being a trustee for an agricultural charity in the east of England. So, to introduce our panel for today, first we have Matthew Gard, a partner at Assets. Matthew was brought up on a family farm and is the growth partner for the West Country, with over 20 years' experience working within the accountancy profession, specialising in agriculture. Matthew is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. He's known for providing a tailored, bespoke service to clients, and Matthew is particularly adept at dealing with business planning, restructuring, and succession strategies, together with taxation to maximise financial benefits. He prides himself on giving rounded advice. We also have Julie Warren, Marketing and Partnerships Director from Propel. Julie is Marketing and Partnerships Director at Propel, who are the UK's fastest growing finance company for business equipment and vehicles. After almost 30 years with Barclays Bank, hi Julie, in a range of senior roles, Julie moved into the independent sector for the past 10 years, trying to help UK SMEs access simple finance solutions. Julie grew up on a big sheep farm in Somerset, which is still today run by her father and brother, so has a real affinity to the current issues facing the farming community and is committed to trying to help them with a range of finance solutions. And last but not least, and I suspect Dominic will be getting most of our questions today, he's the Managing Director of Experienced Energy Solutions. So in 2017, after 13 years in the energy industry, our founder, Dominic O'Brien, had a light bulb moment and saw a gap in the market for an energy consultancy that challenged the existing support available to business energy users by offering open and transparent advice. EES is an independent energy consultancy based in the Midlands that not only helps UK businesses ensure they're offered the best support on all energy related services, but more importantly, challenges them to be more sustainable by using less energy and improving their efficiency, in turn driving down costs and working towards net zero. Both can happen at the same time. So we're going to head straight into questions. We've got an hour today, and so please do keep adding your questions throughout the webinar. Audience members can ask a question at any time. Just type them into the box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll direct them to the panel as we're live. This webinar is going to last for about an hour, and afterwards it will be available on demand. You'll get an email to let you know when the recording is ready for viewing. So let's get straight to it. Let's get straight to the hard question. So Dom, I'm going to come to you, and I guess this sets the tone for the webinar today. Really is. What does the future of the energy market look like? Is this period we're going through short term? Is this going to be the way things are into the future? What's your view?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for that introduction, Adam, and good afternoon, everybody. What a bombshell of a question to start off with. I guess firstly, what I would say is, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't give you an exact factual view on what the market will outturn at. However, I can give you a professional view that I share with colleagues and peers. Obviously, the UK is currently in an energy crisis at the moment, unfortunately, and there's no clear signs of that slowing down throughout 2023. Is the honest assessment. There's currently the EBRS scheme, which is the Energy Bill and Relief Scheme, that is in place for business customers, if you like, up until the 31st of March 2023, which basically means the government are helping subsidise some of the bills that you'll be receiving if you're in a contract period at the moment. I think that's the key point. So for anyone that's come out of contract recently and is in the market currently, you'll see some eye-watering prices that are in the market at the moment, but there is support from the government up until March next year. From that period, there's no clear support that's been announced yet. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to get any easier for the UK from that position. So what that means is we now need to be smarter in the way we're using energy. And what that means is being and understanding the energy that we're using in order to drive down consumption. So now's the time to start looking at how we're using energy and putting in strategies, if you like, to start reducing, because unfortunately the bills are not looking to be any cheaper anytime soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Don. I'm sure we'll come back to that throughout today's session. But so Matt, I'm going to come over to you. So with that in mind, and looking forward to where the market is it worth changing to more energy efficiency equipment? And what's the best options for working out how that would work?
Again, I haven't got a crystal ball, and that's a tricky one. But that's why I'm here. And good afternoon, everyone. That's a particularly big question because it depends on size, type of farm, aspirations, and longevity of the farming business. If someone's looking to get out of the farming business soon, they've got a different attitude to someone that's in the farming business for the long term and has a solid sort of succession plan behind them, perhaps. Also, we've got to take into consideration, and I'm not a politician, but I will get to the point in a minute. Take into consideration the fact that commodity prices may start to drop off in the 23-24 year, and indeed some of the high-profile farm consultants out there are referring to that at the moment, and that the input price costs are sticky. So the inflation we've incurred thus far has inflated costs to a level that probably they're going to stay at, save for, hopefully fertilizer will eventually come down, gas prices come down, but who knows how long is a piece of string. But the output prices that we're going to receive on our commodity price are perhaps less sticky. So with that in mind, and with the fact that the government have now extended the annual investment allowance for £1 million if you're in a tax costly position at the moment, so you can spend on equipment and save tax, subject to cash flow, of course. With all that, and for future proofing your business, I think now is a fantastic time to be looking at options to reduce your energy costs. There are two perhaps major aspects, and if one, in my mind as an accountant, if one goes on to the farm carbon cutting toolkit area on the internet, there's a go into the energy section, and you'll find all sorts of great information on different types of equipment that can be adopted depending on types of farming that you're running. So for dairy farmers, for example, and people on the call will know more than me, but there are certain plates, etc., that you can buy to save on energy costs, and grain dryers on the arable side, and so on and so forth. So there's reference to all that sort of good stuff in that farm carbon cutting toolkit kit. So I would heavily recommend that you look at that in respect of the types of equipment you could be looking at. But the second aspect in that energy document that I'm referring to, the farm carbon cutting toolkit, is basically keep the light switches turned off on the energy side, and be a bit frugal with it. And I know someone, a local farmer actually, I was out with the other night, was referring to the fact that we were walking back to the local pub, how we see a lot less lights on and energy being consumed at perhaps when it's dark at the moment on farmsteads than we did before, where everybody kept the lights on and so on and so forth. So that's another aspect of it as well. But hopefully, Adam, that answers the first leg of the question sufficiently for me to now hospital pass, perhaps to Dominic for comment, if you agree, Adam.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. I guess how I would answer that is there's certainly no one shoe that fits all in terms of technology, unfortunately. And I think you'll hear a common theme from me today, just as we're speaking with many of our customers that are in really sticky positions in terms of cash flow and keeping the business propped up because of these energy prices. But the common theme from me is understanding, I guess, the opportunities on site, and you do that by challenging your current energy partner or energy supplier. So lots of the energy suppliers in the market at the moment are solution providers as well, which means They offer solutions and services to help you drive down costs, obviously in the energy space. So I guess my advice out there is challenge your energy supplier, pick up the phone, give them a call and ask them a question. How can you make me more sustainable? How can you get support out to me where you can do an energy audit on site to tell me what opportunities are available? And once you have that energy audit, that gives you the opportunities that you can then start looking at to implement.
Excellent. Thank you, and well played, Matt. So yeah, good pass. So Julie, I'm going to come to you because we've obviously talked about, and we'll come back to this in a second because it's a question that pops up consistently in what we've had so far. We'll come back to what some of the options are, but how easy is from a Propel perspective? How easy is it to get finance for new energy and energy saving technology or energy creation technology?
Thank you, Adam. I think the answer to that is probably a lot easier than a lot of people think. So, there's quite a sort of view around potentially sort of, financing against assets for farms that, all the lenders do is really interested in is tractors and trailers and that very sort of, basic kind of farm equipment. The reality is actually quite different. I think the hardest bit probably for farmers is to know who to go to, and the whole of the finance industry is has changed so much over the last sort of 10 or 15 years. So whereas you would have maybe gone to your bank for everything, as we know, Adam, Propel is now the asset finance partner for the whole of Barclays Business Banking, and some of the other banks have similar solutions, but there's a huge amount of lenders out there that will finance everything from vertical farming greenhouses, livestock technology. We've done new automated milking machinery, massive barn chicken feeders, automated chicken feeders, the whole sort of automated combine harvesters. So the range is absolutely huge. I think the key is not how easy is it to get, but how do I get that connection with the right specialist lender? And you may be lucky enough that you know one, or you get introduced by your bank or your accountant to one. If not, there's a whole host of specialist agricultural brokers out there. We have a partnership ourselves with Rural Finance, who are absolutely amazing, based all over the country, and they'll take the time to come and see you. So I think long-winded answer, but definitely ask the questions. Obviously, each lend will be looked on its own right, but certainly we're seeing a lot of people coming to us now that haven't borrowed before, that are concerned about holding on to cash in the bank with the rising energy costs, difficulty with some of their supply chains. So, I would say ask the question. Somebody did ask me, one of my father's friends, a couple of days ago, if we could finance some electric scarecrows, or the new laser scarecrows. And I said, I'm not sure we've ever had that request, but we can have a conversation. But yeah, speak to the right people. It's a lot wider than you think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Julie, and I would echo that. That would be my top tip for anybody: is talk to your finance provider, talk to your professionals. There is somebody who will be able to help you with that finance. So, spot on. We have quite a lot of questions coming through. Just a reminder: if you want to ask a question, scroll down to the bottom of your screen. You've got at the foot of your page, you've got an opportunity to ask a question. Pop it in there, click send, and we'll cover it. But Dom, I'm going to come back to you now. I guess two of the questions that have come through quite a lot so far is I guess, what can I do now? What are the quick tips I can do to save energy or potentially look at reducing my costs? And then longer term, what are the new technologies that are available? So it's a double-headed question, but what can I do now, and what should I be doing for the future?
Yeah, just making a note so I answer both of those. So yeah, in terms of what can I do now? So when we're out on site visits with our customers, and I think again, one shoe doesn't fit all because of different property sizes, different sectors, different industries. Obviously, we're talking about the farming industry today, and quite simply, not using what you don't need. There's so much machinery and equipment that we come across that's not being turned off when it's not being used. It's quite shocking, to be honest. And I'm talking power and gas. If you don't need to use whatever equipment for whatever you're doing, you need to be turning it off, and not leaving it on standby. It's just a quick win. Um, in terms of what I'd also do now as well is I really would pick up the phone and speak to your energy supplier, because energy suppliers are giving out lots of good advice, and some are giving out free energy audits, whereby they'll send out engineers to site to help support you straight away. And that's mainly for, I'd say, farmers, businesses that are on business tariffs that have come to an end, and you may be on a variable tariff, or you might have had to secure a contract at a very, very high extortionate rate. You can get support from suppliers out there that will come and give you quick wins. In terms of the future and future proofing, again, you can't manage what you don't monitor. Is a firm saying that we like to talk to our customers. So you have to get in control of the data, which means you have to get in control of the energy that you're using on site, and data is everything. So understanding the energy that you're using is pivotal in terms of making changes, because that gives you the information to make the changes. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. But getting support by industry led experts, etc., is the support that you need moving forward to understand what you're doing on site.
Okay, excellent. And looking to the future, are you seeing any new technologies that are nearly there that farmers should be thinking about?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that the technology that's on everyone's lip for the future is hydrogen, but we're not quite there yet. It's really exciting technology. It's one that we're doing a lot of research on at the moment, because we feel that that's probably going to be the next biggest thing to help businesses in the UK. But I think for the here and now, if you was asking me what technology was, I guess, staring you in the face because of multiple reasons, is solar PV. I'd say more than half of our customers in the thousands of meter points are considering and implementing solar at the moment, and that's just because the payback periods have more or less halved because of the price of energy. So what I mean by that is, on average, historically, in what I would call a normal market, and we're obviously in an unprecedented market at the moment, I would say paybacks are anything from 6, 7, 8 years onwards. But now that's almost half, and we're seeing paybacks of even 2 years. And I'm talking, opportunities with battery storage as well, because battery storage really complements solar PV. But obviously, you need to have an asset for that to go on the roof, or you need to obviously have the acreage, the fields, for it to be able to go on there and get past planning permission. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of farmers that maybe on deals or opportunities where they're getting paid per acre from energy companies to put the solar on their farms. There are other opportunities that we can discuss further on the call in that. But yeah, solar PV accompanied with battery storage is really making headway in the UK at the moment.
And excellent. So I think we've talked about that. We've got a question from Rachel, who's at DEFRA actually. So Matthew, I'm going to put this one to you, which is, so we've talked about this. We'll touch on interest rates, I think, in a moment, and I'll come to Julie on that. But what would it, from your experience, Matthew, what would a useful government intervention look like? I think we've talked around direct payments. That's not an option, because we've been that. We've moved away from that. But what would help farmers be able to make some of the actions and take some of the actions that Dom's been talking about?
So probably for a start, it would be useful, and forgive me if I was saying a bit direct, but if DEFRA were directly funding some of these energy contracts and energy advisory sections for farmers, specific for farmers, but they're not at the moment. And I emailed directly DEFRA the night before last or the night before that, and they confirmed at the moment there's nothing from a DEFRA national level. However, there could, if you contact your local LEPs, partnerships and so on, there may be funding available for you locally. And certainly, if you're suffering hardship, RABI, for example, can help family farm situations there. But back to the point, what could the government do to help us further? I think it's to fund advice to the farmer specifically on energy at the moment. Of course, it's difficult because who knows where it's going to end up, like worldwide and so on. But as Dominic said earlier, we're fairly certain that energy prices are here to stay in the long term. But it's difficult to perhaps ring it much better than that, Adam. There is something called the Farm Resilience Fund that is subsidising or paying for free advice at the moment, and it's £32 million that has been thrown into that arena to pay for advice for consultants directly to the farmer. But that also covers things like elms, converting over to elms and countryside stewardship to elms, and how to future-proof the drop-off in BPS and blah, 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 and all that sort of thing. But I would argue that if I were a farmer right now, we'd be taking advantage of that Farm Resilience Fund and getting my free advice and throwing the energy side of it into it, because, of course, the fund does actually cover how to future-proof the economics of your farm business with succession and so on.
Excellent. And I'm going to add to it for everybody, and I think it's been a common theme on all of the questions that we've had through so far and that are popping up as we're talking, which is planning. I think, Dominic, that's something that we've talked about previously. Is planning is the certainty around planning for farmers is quite difficult as to can I put solar here, can I not? Wind turbines, obviously, in 2015 stopped being something that was available. But I think certainly that's one area. Looking at the questions and from the customers that I speak to, would really need some clarity. Is what can I do on the land and how long does it take? So, brilliant. Thank you, Matt. Julie, I'm going to come to you just in terms of, and Matt, I'll come back to you in a moment on interest rates. But I guess when you're looking at finance applications, do you take into consideration rising energy costs when you're looking at those? So how does that work? Is it the fact that they're rising in your financing, is that a benefit? You've taken costs out of the business. How do you look at it?
So I think every business is looked at in its own right. Yes, of course, we've got one eye on the energy costs now because we want to help our customers improve their businesses. The last thing we want is to help people get into a situation where that they can't afford for the new lending that they've taken out. So for some businesses and for some industries, it's obviously been significantly higher. So we would look at that, but generally we're looking at the quality of the business, the balance sheet, and what they're actually buying. We see a lot of businesses in lots of different sectors actually, where they're looking to replace historic equipment that they've got for much newer and more energy efficient models. So different sector, but was talking to a big printing company lately who wanted to replace a 7-year-old piece of printing equipment and put some solar panels on his roof at the same time. And actually, even with all of that, the cost was going to be less than he was paying now in his for the current energy. So everything looked on its own, but we want to make businesses stronger, and it's very hard to say no. We really hate saying no, but we don't want to put anybody into a more difficult situation. That probably isn't the right answer for them at that moment in time, and there's probably other people that we should just suggest them speaking to rather than just making it worse to try and do something.
Brilliant. No, that's good, and that's very similar to what we recommend. Thank you, Julie. Dom, we've had Matthew. I haven't forgot you. I'm going to come back to you at some point with the interest rate one, just for my own enjoyment, really. So, yeah, very cool. But Dom, we've just had one pop in from Jeremy Walker, and it's a very specific question, but I guess it also links in something. So William Marshall at George F. White's also asked is why don't more farms have solar? But Jeremy's asking, he's got solar on the roof. They use a lot of electricity. They'd like to put more on, but their DNO, WPD, hopefully you know what that means, will not allow them to put more on our system. Is there a way to use more of our own generated electricity without pushing any down the mains? Are there any potential solutions to that?
That's a really interesting question, and we do come across that quite a lot. So basically what that's saying is Western Power won't allow this said person, if you like, to put any more solar panels on their roof because it's going to generate more that's going to the grid. For whatever reason, the system might need upgrading. So firstly, my advice to you would be speak to Western Power about how much it would cost to upgrade your system, if you like, as in your energy supply that's coming into the building. Because if that's upgraded, technically and you go to what's called a half-hourly supply, technically you should be able to put more panels on. So that would be the first port of call, is speak to the DNO and ask them how much it would cost to upgrade your service, is the standout message. I think there was a question in there, Adam, on solar panels for the farm, as in ground mounted, was there?
Well, no, just generally, why wouldn't you have solar if you was a farmer? What would be stopping you do that?
Well, in the position we're in at the moment, I think every farmer should be looking at it, in all honesty, because of if you're in a position where you can put solar in the farm and sell the energy back to the grid with the current energy prices that are out there, this could be a huge revenue stream, and this is what we're looking at for some of our customers at the moment. The sticking point is what you mentioned earlier, Adam, is the planning permission, and it's an absolute nightmare, to be honest. It could take months and months. I've been involved in big wind generation projects, which has took years. So with solar, it can take months to get planning permission through, and 12 to 18 months to even look at install. So it is quite a lengthy period. However, with there not being any clear signs of the energy prices falling throughout 2023, it's certainly something to start looking at and run the numbers. So my advice would be get somebody out to see you, like ourselves, who can look at profiling what a solar farm would look like for you, and then starting the ball rolling to see if that looks like a better financial model versus what you're doing at the moment in any given field.
Excellent. Thanks, Don. Good advice. And Jeremy, we've seen your reply. Well, we won't cover that because that's a lot of money for a new transformer. So, yeah, that's probably answered.
I'm
probably
guessing
answered
that,
your own question there.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's already done that then and gone to the DNO and got a really big number from them. And I guess I've got one more point on that. You don't actually have to just go to the DNO. A second piece of advice would be there are independent networks out there. Get on Google and search independent DNOs. That often do come up a lot cheaper than the network. If anybody's listening from the network, they won't be very happy with me, but you can look at independent networks and they can support you too, and it's often a lot cheaper and quicker.
Excellent. Thank you. Dom, I'm going to stay with you because we've had a couple of questions drop in, and I'll try and tie these together. So the first one is, I guess we've talked about solar, we've talked a little bit around sort of wind generation, but that's probably not onshore, is not an option at the moment.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about biogas, so AD, CHP, so particularly for livestock smallholders. Is that something that's an option? I know we went through a period where AD was very, very hard to manage. We had a lot of farmers, I remember, that got involved and then didn't have the right inputs to it. So is that something that you've come across?
So how I'd answer that is any technology that can generate energy is worth considering right now with the state the UK energy market's in. That's probably the statement I would use. With things like what you've just mentioned, technology is what you just mentioned there. It's really important to get things like feed right, and the maintenance and setup of technologies like what you've mentioned just now, but biomass, AD plants. If you can get the right setup on site where it's running at what's deemed a reasonable rate with the energy prices in the market, anything that can generate electricity or energy to the grid, and you can get in what's called a PPA, which is a power purchase agreement, where you can sell it back to the market, is definitely worth reviewing now, to future-proof your business and look at extra revenue streams. So my advice is look at any opportunity you can, and how you get that is doing things like an energy audit where professionals come out to your land and have a look at what's feasible and what the options are. It could cost you a little bit of money, maybe in the small amount of thousands, to get out a good reputable partner that can look at different opportunities for you, but it's certainly worth it if you can come away with it with multiple options of what you could potentially implement.
Absolutely, and I say this because I've spoken to a lot of farmers who have AD. I've also spoken to a lot of farmers who've considered opening sort of holiday lets, and not every farmer in the UK is designed to be own holiday lets. Dealing with the public is very difficult. Dealing with an AD plan is even more difficult. So it's not for everybody, but there are lots of options available. Mike Wollacott makes a really, really good point, and I think this is one we probably take away and think about, but it's one we reflect on as an industry. So it's how do we create a network of regional demonstration farms, because farms can be a local power station, renewable heat, electricity, and low emission fuels, moving towards energy self-sufficiency, but wider. I think that's a really, really good example. If we look at Leaf and the fantastic job that they've done in terms of showcasing farms, I think that's something to look at for the future. Yeah, Rachel, hopefully that perhaps gives you some ideas as well to your question. So I'm finally going to get my question in. So to Matt, but I'm going to make it a little bit easier, Matt. So obviously all of the things that we're talking about are going to require some investment. So that's potentially going to mean using funds, which are possibly earning quite good interest rates at the minute, or borrowing money. How do you protect your business? So nobody knows where they're going to go. Or else we wouldn't be sat here. We'd be sat in the Bahamas. So how do you protect your business against that? But I guess, are there any grants available in England as well that could help support some of this investment?
Yeah, and forgive me, Adam, we're just going to go back to the Rachel one and just clarify that email from DEFRA as well. It was regards grant funding for green projects for energy production, and that's what's a zero at the moment, but maybe there will be a grant coming down the line to assist on that side of it. So back to your question, I guess you're saying, how to future-proof the business within the current onset landscape? And the answer to that one is far and wide, of course, isn't it? I think it's about getting the highest price for your produce whilst paying the minimum for your inputs, of course. Otherwise, and everybody's going to hate me saying this, but planning is critical, and alongside your succession planning, budgeting, forecasting, cash flow projections, the classic, and sensitizing that in terms of interest rates and where they may go at the moment. In terms of making the question easier for me, I believe interest rates aren't going to be as bad as perhaps we thought they were going to be, although we're getting a bit of a rough time of it at the moment, and base rates likely to go up again, of course, and again, probably. But hopefully the bank margins come off to kind of compensate for the future increases. So at the moment, probably the bank, and you might disagree, Adam, with this, but the bank, if you're securing funding at the moment, probably it's a one time you might be saying go variable, just while there's so much uncertainty, because things in a few months' time will settle down, and perhaps it would be a better time then to fix. You may disagree with that, Adam, but with future proofing the business. Are you talking very short term, Adam, medium, or long term, or the whole lot?
I guess just in the short term, if you're looking at paying, potentially 70,000, 80,000 pounds for solar, interest rates are where they are, and potentially going up. Is there anything that you could get in terms of grants to help, or is it? My advice personally would be if you can afford it, fix it, because then that's you're going to pay that rate for the long term. Yeah,
and you've got your certainty on it, haven't you? Which I thought you might have a difference to me on that one, but it's so not with DEFRA, and we're at the moment. And when I emailed DEFRA, I'm just looking from my notes here. When I emailed DEFRA the other evening, the direct response was unfortunately, costs associated with generating renewable energy are not eligible for funding from the RPA grant service. Grants may be available through Department for Business, which is what Dominic was talking about a minute ago. Dominic, I believe, yes, in the opening gambit. Energy and industrial strategy. You could also look up the local enterprise partnership growth hub for relevant areas. So of grants that may be available to you locally. So you can't. I mean, this is a national presentation, isn't it? So we don't know where such grants may be available. But other than that, no, not at the moment.
Yeah.
Dominic, agreed?
Yeah, I've grants, and when we're looking at solar and other technologies for our customers, we always look at where can we get it funded first, just to support. How can we get it paid for you? And to be honest, there's not much out there in terms of grants that we can find, to be honest, other than what Matt's mentioned there. I think with the UK's plans, the first country to suggest to be net zero by 2050, which is probably a separate webinar, which we could have a debate on. In order to get anywhere near that, even though 2050 seems a while away, in anywhere to get anywhere near that, huge investment needs to come in for technology and implementation of solutions. So we feel that there has to be grants and funds that are pumped into the UK to support with things like this. But unfortunately, at the moment, without making a joke with our current political landscape, which changing quite a lot at the moment, unfortunately, there looks like there's nothing around at the moment in that space.
Okay. No, thanks, Dominic. I think that's probably where everybody in the audience is reading the questions in terms of where do we go. I think, Matt, just to pick up on your point, and I think this links into Julie's, everything that you can finance, you can fix. So if you can afford it today, and it looks like, and Matt, I'm glad you said as an accountant, always have a plan ahead, because if you didn't say that, I'd have been disappointed. But if you've got that forward plan, you know what the next year, 12 months, 18 months looks like, then you can afford to calculate what you can afford, and it goes back into what Julie was talking about earlier with rising energy costs. So there are solutions, there are options, but it's understanding them and speaking to somebody. I think that's the clear message I'm hearing. And unfortunately, there aren't grants to support with this at the moment, but watch this space. Dom, I'm going to come to you because we've got a very specific one, and I guess this is something that could be facing a number of our customers, and it's Simon. Thanks, Simon. I think you asked a question on our last webinar. So it's got a potato store. Electric costs may increase from £75,000 to £275,000. So it's a £200,000 increase when the current contract ends. It's £44 a tonne, which is obviously that's when we talk about increasing food prices in supermarkets, that isn't farmers making extra money. That's going towards these costs. Our usage is mostly on the pull down in October, and it's hard to see how to get an annual production matched to a very tight timescale usage. What are your thoughts on supply and demand agreements with the DNO?
So yeah, that's a really good point, to be honest, and I think I'd want to ask more questions to understand um, the rationale around that with the DNO. I think understanding the profile and the base load of how you're using energy and how you could flip that to a different period would probably be the first port of call. Um, but I think, yeah, I'd be happy to have a separate chat. I don't know how maybe we put some details up after to link where you can maybe contact us. But yeah, looking at, I guess, your base load of how you're using energy and what the opportunities are at using it at different times is probably where we would start. Um, so yeah, I feel there's a bit more of qualifying questions that I'd need to ask before I answered that one. Bit of a unique one, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably a good point for everybody is have those conversations with somebody. There are experts out there.
Yeah,
Doesn't necessarily need to be you, Dom, but there,
yeah.
you're there. We'll share details afterwards. So sticking on that, we've got a question from Craig, which is, and I'll stick with you, Dom, because it's your area of expertise. Do you think that we will see electric at 10 pence per kilowatt again? I think that goes back to the very start of this conversation.
Wow. How do I answer this one? What a question that is. So I get involved in trading energy at a large scale for millions of pounds worth of energy grouped together. And if you're used to a traditional way of energy, of fixing your energy, where you go to 10, 15, 20 different energy suppliers, get the cheapest rate, and you fix the price on that given day, we do what's called flexible purchasing, whereby we group businesses together that are smaller and put them in a buying group so we can trade directly on the energy market. The reason why I'm starting with this is because currently the day ahead prices, which means an index what you would fall onto, those rates are a lot lower than any trading periods in the future. I think it would be very hopeful to view that prices would get down to 10 pence again, but it's not impossible with the right investment into the UK's energy infrastructure. Um, I could go into a more technical answer to say that the way energy is derived in the UK, that power prices follow gas prices, which is not very fair and very frustrating. If that was decoupled and legislation changed, we certainly could see 10 pence a unit again in electricity if the UK takes control of its own energy market. So I think there's some legislation and changes needed to happen in the UK market, but it cannot be sustained at the current levels. We're seeing businesses go under, which is, real, real sad to see, to be honest. So I cannot see it staying at the levels it is at the moment, and I feel that intervention and the changing of the regulations around the UK market will come into play, in my opinion. However, 10 pence seems a long shot in the dark at the moment, to be honest.
No, thanks, Dom. I think that's a realistic view. I think that's something that everybody on this webinar, and if you're listening afterwards, is think to the future. Where could it be, and is the investment you're making now worthwhile for the future? So Dominic, as with any time, we're 45 minutes in. We're now getting into the real technical stuff. So I'm going to stick with you for a couple of questions, and then I promise everybody we'll come right back up and walk away with some tips. So. Are you seeing an increased number? Thanks, Philippa, for this question. Are you seeing an increased number of co-location wind, solar with storage projects? Could they be prioritised when applying for grid connections?
Definitely. I'd say it's a good idea as well because it supports networks that need generation putting into the grid. You can tell from my accent, I'm from the Midlands, and I'm really trying to hold on to my accent for you guys. But Birmingham, I call it the home of industry. The grid is absolutely rampacked here. It's tough to do anything with our manufacturing clients where they want to increase in production because they can't, because the grid's just so stacked, is what I would say. So you have to look at things like solar just to sell back to the grid so they can ease some of that restriction. Also, electric vehicles, I'm surprised I haven't seen anything of that at the moment, but I think with the infrastructure of lots of electric vehicles taking off in the UK, where's the energy coming from that, because of the grid? So I think dual applications are a great idea. I'm not seeing that at the moment, to be honest, with wind and solar, because wind is obviously, it takes quite a long time to get through the planning stage with the DNOs. Solar's a lot quicker than wind, in my experience. But putting them both together, I think the local DNOs will come with their hands open, to be honest, because the grid's so stressed.
Okay, and Dom, I'm going to stay with you for another question, and then Julie, I'm going to pop over to you. So obviously we've gone through a huge period during COVID of supply chain challenges. We've seen demand increasing for solar, and this would be interesting to get your view on the reality of it. So, has the price of solar gone up? So, is that what you're seeing? Has that come down over a sort of longer term period? I remember when it first came in, they were very expensive. And what would be your advice? Would it be crack on, put panels in now, or hold off and see if the price drops?
That's a really good question. Do you mean the price of the equipment, do you?
Yeah, so the price of the equipment.
Yeah, so I believe that in the last 12 months, so more towards last year, there was a massive price hike in solar equipment, which has settled. I wouldn't say that there is a huge spike in the materials for solar at the moment, but what I would say is there's a spike in demand in the UK, and certainly with the solar projects we have ongoing at the moment, we are worried about the supply. For instance, we're doing, I'll give you an example. We're doing a manufacturer in Kent at the moment, and their energy prices have gone from 15 pence a kilowatt hour up to 90 pence a kilowatt hour, which is being subsidised by the government up until the 31st of March next year. But as of the 1st of April, I think I mentioned at the start, there's nothing in place to say that that's going to be subsidised. Okay. So he has no choice but to put a technology on like solar because of the energy prices, which he can't sustain. And we believe we will be able to get them installed by then, but it is touch and go in terms of because of the huge scale solar project that we're fitting for them. So well over 150 kilowatts. That's a big piece of kit to bring into the UK, and we're worried about the supply and demand, to be honest. And we feel that the surge in solar is coming and just starting. So we feel that could push up prices, but at the moment we're not seeing that. And with the payback periods being around 3 or 4 years, as I said before, some of them are around 2 years, depending on the state of your energy contract and what the prices you're paying. It really is a no-brainer to take a look at it. And if it's not for you because you don't have the capacity or the issues with the grid in terms of the DNO, and you have to upgrade for a big number that the gentleman mentioned earlier, then so be it. It's not for you, but I'd certainly advise to go and have a look at it.
No, good advice, Dom. And Julie, I guess with the long lead times, if you're potentially looking at 12 months to get that install, how does that work in terms of getting the finance offers? What's your advice? What do you do first? Get the finance or get it booked in?
So I think it's a chicken and egg, isn't it? I would say if you've got an idea that you want to buy something, you could certainly get an agreement in principle, but that wouldn't be set in terms of the repayments and the rates until we knew exactly what you were buying. So we'd need then to see the exact spec of what you were buying. I think a lot of people would want to know that they, in principle, could get the finance. Certainly at the moment, we're getting a lot of people coming to us that have maybe not borrowed before. But, as I said before, I think wanting to hold on to their cash. So I think to have a conversation with a lender, things have almost gone back a bit full circle. We really like relationships with our customers, and that's not just at the moment of them buying. It's about understanding what their buying plans are, sending people out to go and see them so that we've got the relationship there at the right time. So, I would say at any point, if you're thinking you want to do something, Lead times have been pretty horrendous on quite a lot of things in the UK, from electric cars to combines and other bits of kit. But things change. Suddenly you think something that's going to be on a 12-month wait time suddenly becomes available sooner, or it might be that you find a really good second-hand bit of kit, which again, you're able to get finance on. So I think the most important thing that I would say to anybody is have a relationship with a lender, so that when you do want to buy something, you can pick up the phone and say, aha, I want to put in solar, I want to put in a new air conditioning, whatever it is, that you've got the relationship there. It's forever moving. I think we've still got the backlash of COVID, where manufacturers weren't operating for periods of time. There's not particularly any rhyme or reason why you can get your hands on something and not something else. I was watching a program on Tesla the other day when he was first starting, and saying about people putting deposits down, for a car they might get in 18 months' time. I don't think we're quite at that stage, but I think it's about having a relationship so that you can have an honest conversation. Things change. We get that with interest rates changing. We have had some people that have said they want to hold off. Other people said that they want to go slightly sooner. We've also had people from the farming industry that have wanted to do refinance against assets that they maybe brought last year for cash, but now they want to put some finance against them to help with their overall cash flow within the business. So I would say relationship is key here, whether it's with somebody like us, whether it's with your bank or your accountant, or, as I said before, one of the specialist agricultural brokers. But know who you're going to talk to when you are wanting to do something, Adam.
Brilliant. Good advice. Thank you, Julie. And as predicted, Dom, I'm going to come back to you for a couple more questions. We've got about 8 minutes left, and then we'll start to sort of wrap up. But the first one is from Lawrence, which is, what's the best way around securing PPAs, so power purchase agreements?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's all dependent on how much volume you're generating to send to the grid. Firstly, I'd say use an energy partner like ourselves that has relationships with off-takers in the UK. I think we work with 6 or 7 different PPA providers, some of the biggest in the UK, whereby, get them battling out for the best price that they can give you on PPAs. If you don't have enough volume to have your own PPA, which is sometimes the case, depending on how large it is the technology that you've got generating, you can join other baskets. So we've created a basket whereby, for instance, all of the rooftop solar that we're installing at the moment and ground-mounted solar, we're purchasing the energy directly off clients through our basket, because it allows them to join a larger buying group. So if you don't have enough volume, you can join buying groups, is what I'm saying. If not, there's plenty of off-takers out there that you can get them routing for your business, and use a partner that can support you like ourselves.
Brilliant. And if you're trying to use your own electricity, obviously battery technology has been a conversation for a long time, and I certainly know it's, from a residential perspective, it's much further ahead. But in terms of on-farm battery storage, how viable is that now, and in the future, what does that market look like?
Yeah, it's definitely getting more viable now, and what I would say is it really complements solar really well. And I would say that although batteries are still quite expensive to be honest, so when we're looking at solar installs, it could be around 100k for a solar install. You're adding on an extra 70k for the battery. So batteries are really expensive, but if you can use them instead of wasting the energy going back to the grid, if you've got no PPA route, that is, then they're a good option. I think the preferred option for us, for our customers, which brings them more value, is rather than a battery, generate as much energy as you can so you can use. And if there's any excess energy, get yourself in a PPA whereby you can sell it back to the grid. And that's not always the case. Not everybody can do that. There's lots of criteria. You have to have what's called a half-hourly meter, and have some criteria to be able to do that. But if you're in a position where you can generate more energy in this market that we don't believe is going anywhere anytime soon, is take advantage of that and get yourself in a PPA when you can sell it back to the grid.
Excellent. Thanks, Dom. There's some real solid advice there. So to end it, we're going to end it on three pearls of wisdom, hopefully. So I'm going to come to you, Matt, then Julie, and then Dom. And I guess from the last sort of 55 minutes is what would be your one piece of professional advice for anybody listening to today's webinar? What should be the one thing that they should be doing? So Matt, I will come to you.
Sorry if this sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. But now is the time to be taking advice from your advisors. So seek that advice.
Excellent. And Julie, what would be your piece of advice?
I think I'd say don't, look at all options. Don't dismiss something because you think, financially it might not be possible. Get the advice on, I think what Dom's been saying all the way along, find out exactly where you are now, work out, what is using your energy, and then look at, are the new technologies and things out there, and don't dismiss anything. Just keep very open-minded because, honestly, to find the right finance partner to support you, there's an awful lot of people out there that will look to finance some very weird and wonderful things. If you've got a solid business, if you've got a solid plan, have that conversation and you might be surprised.
Brilliant. Excellent. And Dom?
Yeah, so how I'd summarise is we're in an unprecedented time in the energy world, and the call out from me is take action now. Even if you're in a longer term energy contract and you feel that you're riding out these waves, whatever position you're in, I feel you have to take action now. Challenge your current energy supplier, challenge your current energy broker or partner, whoever you're working with. Get them to come and support you in terms of how can I be more sustainable. Because there's lots of help and advice out there and solutions that can help you drive down consumption, and that's the key part.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dom. And I think I think just in summary from me, I think one of the things I've heard is lots of advice around talking to people, taking away, and the finance is available if you need it, but have a discussion with the professionals around what works for you, what works for your plans as a farm and as a business, and then talk to a professional like Dom around what your options are. I think that's really important. I think one of the things we haven't touched on today's call is this challenge between sustainability, renewables, and food. And there's certainly a huge number of events that I'm involved in the next couple of months where we're talking about that. But I think a number of the examples we've seen today show that the two can go hand in hand and still be profitable. So it's not either or. You can do everything in this sector, and I think that's really important to take away. So I'd like to thank Dominic, Julie, and Matthew for joining us this evening. Hopefully it's been a useful session, and we've covered a lot of questions. My final piece of advice would be, and I think Matthew touched on this earlier, is if you are really struggling and things are really tough, and some of the things that we've been talking today aren't an option for your farm or your business, there are some fantastic support out there. And I'd just like to, we had a request just to mention RABI, so thank you to Karen Ellis. So RABI are available nationally. They can talk about some of the grants that are available for businesses and for farmers. You've obviously got the FCN as well. And my advice is, if you need to, speak to them because they are a huge source of support in the community. So thank you everybody for your attendance tonight. If you're listening on catch up, you didn't get to see us, but hopefully the words made sense. And thanks everybody for your questions. And we look forward to seeing you again for our final and third webinar in the future. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Cheers.